everyone, and welcome back to Beyond Care, where we shine a light on the people, programs, and innovations that make caregiving more meaningful. I'm your host, Annika Dhariwal, co-founder of Land Care. Caregiving doesn't always look the way we expect it to. For millions of people, it means raising children whilst also supporting aging parents. It means living in the middle of constant responsibility, love, pressure, and exhaustion. This group has a name. They are the sandwich generation. And today we're talking about how they can survive it and truly thrive in it. My guest today has made it her life's work to support families living in this exact reality. Christy Byrne Yates is a licensed educational psychologist, national speaker, author, and co-host of the Alzheimer's and Dementia podcast, Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. Christy, welcome to Beyond Care. I'm so glad that you're here with us today.
Well, thank you, Annika. I'm delighted to be here.
I'd just like to start by asking, you work closely with families in this sort of sandwich generation that and kind of the area that they're navigating, which is those raising children whilst caring for aging parents. Why is this experience becoming so common today, and what makes it uniquely overwhelming?
Right. That's a great question. I think part of it is there's a lot of demographic shifts. There are people who are having children later in life. So then that automatically means their parents may be aging at a time when they have young children. There's also the fact that a lot of people are living a lot longer and healthier, which is all well and good. But the being sandwiched is also part of the reality that many parents have to be, if there are two parents in a household or two partners, both are working. And so there's a lot of different shifts that are going on. And I would say too, in the world, it's pretty much more developed world. And I don't like to use that term. That's not
Right.
a respectful term, but in many cultures, there's not really a sandwich generation because everybody's living multi-generationally, right? So having grandma and grandpa and young kids in the same household is how life is. But many of us who, especially, and I kind of focus on the United States and I do work with people in the UK, but we've all moved around. We've moved away from each other. And so then when someone's at the end or part of their life, the last part, they may not have their village around them anymore. And so there's a lot of things that are going on there. And this term was coined back in the 1980s. I didn't come up with it. I wish I could have. Wow, what a trademark, right? But a psychologist working with people in New York City was finding this, that women in their 40s were coming to her and just feeling overwhelmed because suddenly they're having to take care of this other generation now while their
Right.
kids are young. So it's just a lot of things that you have to juggle. I think the biggest thing is that there's time juggle, but there's responsibility juggle. And there's also the fact that in the sandwich generation, we're not parenting our parents, we're managing or supporting them at the end of their life. And the tasks there are different than what we're doing with our children. We're raising our children into independence. And so there's a whole bunch of things we're doing to do that. But then with our parents, we're seeing their loss of independence often. And that's a different dynamic. And so we have to kind of look at what's happening to us in the middle and how are we responding to these very different changes. So those are some of the things that I think are unique. The other thing I would mention is it's very difficult to watch elders or other people in your life um, lose their abilities and lose their ability to take care of themselves. And there's anticipatory grief that comes with that. We're grieving before this person is even gone. And that weighs heavy on us. So that makes it very difficult to show up really joyfully for your kids sometimes. So there's a bunch of different things in there. So I've kind of given you a whole bunch there, Annika, but that's kind of what the dynamic is in the sandwich generation.
Right. And then, sort of to just dive deeper into that, through your work over the years, what are some patterns that you see in caregivers who struggle the most, and what are the support systems that actually make a difference?
So I think excuse me. So I think having a support system is really important, right? And so we as I said, we're, many times everybody in the adults in the household are working. And we may have our work families, but we might not be as tied into some other folks that we might need. And I think it's really important to consciously, number one, consciously choose and identify yourself as a caregiver. A lot of people don't recognize their caregivers. So I think the first thing there is that consciousness that this is what I'm doing. And then you can start to design the supports that you need in your life, right? And you're going to enlist people to help you. It could be other professionals that you could work with. It could be finding legal professionals that help you work with your family members. It could be financial planners that help you work with your family members. But it might be also people who can support you, finding support groups, finding people like your company and looking for people who can help them to learn the things they haven't learned. I mean, this caregiving thing is a whole nother skill set, and we haven't necessarily been trained to do that. Yeah, so I think those are the things that are important is to find your support systems, build them, be very intentional about that, and also to give some grace to those folks that you think should help you, and maybe they're not helping you in the way that you expect them to, and realize most people are rising to what their level of ability is, right? And
Right,
so it doesn't mean we can't assume they're just abandoning you. It's they might not be able to. And
right.
so we release that. We may have relationships later, but you find people intentionally that can help you.
And I guess also just to add to that in some way, I think people also sometimes are just hesitant to ask for help when they do need it. And like, I guess recognizing that as well.
Yes, yes. That's a really good point. And I think asking for help is in
Yeah,
itself a skill, right? Learning how to do that. We're not always, I mean, gosh, yeah, I think for sure the ethic here in the United States is, do it yourself, be independent, get it all done. And
yeah,
you know what? You can't do it all. You cannot do it all. You are not failing if you cannot do it all.
right.
And I'm going to say that again. You are not failing if you cannot do it all. It's impossible to do it all. So you have to learn how to ask intentionally. And so it's being very specific about what you want, um, not going into a lot of story and stuff to get somebody to help you. It's to say, this is what I need. This is how I need it. Are you able to help? And more than more often than not, people really want to help. I mean, I like to help people. Most people I know like to help other people, but they don't always know what to do. So when you can be
Right.
very specific about what you need, that's important.
And then since you train both families as well as professionals, from your perspective, how can workplaces, care providers, and communities in general better support sandwich generation caregivers in real practical ways?
Yeah, great. That's another great question. I did some work with a group, and we looked at, we talked to a group of human resource managers and did a focus group, and we wrote a white paper, and that's available online. Well, I do a lot of work with employers, actually. I do a lot of video online groups that I educate employers, employee resource groups, right? So I think that's one thing is for companies to look at offering employee resource groups where people can come together and talk about what are their concerns, their issues,
Right.
and also getting educational support for that. Like, how do you do these things? Again, we're not always trained to do all these things in life, right? Um, but the other thing is for employees or to be very, I think, careful about how they ask for help. So I wrote a piece for the Conversation Project, and you can find that online at theconversationproject.org, I think. It's a .org. And it talks about how to approach your managers about this because a lot of people are afraid to identify themselves as caregivers in the workplace. They're afraid of being micromanaged. Am I going to be looking, are people going to be looking at my productivity differently? That kind of thing. But you have rights as an employee, and you can take advantage of something called Family Medical Leave Act. And there's a lot of different ways you can take advantage of that. It doesn't have to be in one, you're given 12 weeks in a calendar year, but you don't have to do those one in a row,
Yeah.
right? It could be 2 days here, a week here. But learn how you can do that. So you talk to your HR managers and you ask about these things and you're very specific about here's what I can do. And you ask for what's available to me, what flexibility do I have? And I think for employers, it's also important for employers to train managers on this is what a lot of people are going through right now. And the numbers are just going up. So let's train our manager staff about how to support folks.
Right. Yeah, I guess the first step would be just people even being sort of aware that they're able to avail these benefits. Because I guess in a lot of cases, just sort of in any industry, sometimes in a corporate workplace or anywhere, you don't even know what you're able to avail or not. Because sometimes companies don't directly disclose that until you ask.
Exactly, exactly. And you do have to ask, and you have the right to ask. But I think it's important too to come to the table with, and here's how I'm hoping to do this, right? So you don't necessarily need to go to your manager and say, give me all these things. It's this is what's happening. Here's what I'd like to do. Here's how I'm going to make sure that all of my work is done, and this is how
Right.
I'm going to do it. And you know what? This is really tricky because some people can't phone in their jobs, right? I mean, if you're a bus driver, you can't do that remotely, so it's really important to understand your position and how you can avail yourself of those services that might be available.
Right. And then, sort of on a personal level, this time of life can drain even the strongest people. What daily tools or kind of mindset shift helps caregivers move from constant survival mode to something more sustainable or even meaningful?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is going back to something I said earlier, and that is that consciously acknowledging to yourself that you are a caregiver. I am in this caregiving role. And this is how I want, this is what I can do, what I'm willing to do, and you can set those boundaries. We feel like we can never say no. We feel like we can never say no to our kids a lot of the time.
Mhm.
But the truth is, setting boundaries with the persons we're taking care of or supporting, including our children, is really appropriate and it's great for our kids to see. The one mind shift that I like to throw out to parents is as you're raising your kids, and they're seeing you take on this other role, having conversations with them about what's going on for you emotionally. This is how I'm feeling right now, guys. Here's what I need from you. Um, and this is why I'm doing these things. I can't do this event with you because of this. And letting them understand your emotional journey, not to lay that at their feet and ask for things they cannot give you, because it's not appropriate to have our kids then rush in and be our support systems, but to let them know what you're going through so that they learn how to set boundaries, because that's a great skill for our kids to learn too, right? And here's why I need to take this Saturday off, guys. I need to decompress, and this is how I can feel better and recharge. And invite them to understand what you're going through, and even ask, how do you recharge? What are the ways you do it? And teach them about self-care in real time. And
Right.
this is where our kids then start to build resilience in a new way and in a very practical way. And kids will show up. And the other thing I like to tell parents is, and I love talking to parent groups, is your kids are always learning from you. Whether you're giving them a lecture and telling them something, they're actually learning more by watching what you do. So, this is a great opportunity to role model self care, role model boundaries, role model um, managing things in a new way, asking for help. These are all skills that we hope our kids have as they're growing in
Right.
independence.
So that's all for today. Chrissy, thank you so much for bringing such honesty, clarity, and compassion into this conversation. The work you do really reminds us that caregivers don't just need advice, they need understanding, permission to rest, and real support that meets them where they are. And to our listeners, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with others around you and follow Beyond Care. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.